Colonel, it's me, Snake.
Check out those leaves falling off, Snake.
So, due to the nature of Metal Gear Solid, I'm gonna have to get political in this video. If relatively moderately central political opinions upset you, click off the video. Anyways, disclaimer over. Enjoy the video. Let me tell you a story that I think is perfect.
Mr. Hideo Kojima. Hideo Kojima!
What's great about Kojima-san's work?
Hideo Kojima is like, fingerprint.
Video game genius, Hideo Kojima.
Guillermo del Toro called me and he goes, there's a guy named Hideo who's gonna call you, just say yes.
Kojima's style breaks the barrier between cinema and games.
There is no one like Hideo Kojima. No one.
And then I met Hideo.
One of the greatest creative minds and innovators in our industry.
こんにちは、小島秀夫です。
In the wider gaming industry, there really isn't a name like Hideo Kojima. No name quite holds the legendary prestige he does. I think of people who are the closest to achieving Kojima status in the industry, and so few of them have actually achieved said status. People like Tim Schafer and Warren Spector still feel like niche names, while people like Neil Druckmann, Todd Howard, and even Shigeru Miyamoto often take a backseat to their own works. Hideo Kojima, however, is not one of those people. When I play a Kojima game, I'm playing a Kojima game, which is crazy because for over a decade and a half, he's only worked on one franchise, and wouldn't release anything outside of that until he was literally forced to stop. Before that though, Kojima was known for one thing and one thing only: Metal Gear Solid, one of the most revolutionary franchises of all time. The first three Metal Gear Solid games alone can be considered some of the greatest games ever made, on their own. I can hardly think of any other franchise that actually has done that. And Metal Gear Solid 4, while having its critics, is still universally acclaimed. I mean, I love it at least. I'll be analyzing the first 4 Metal Gear Solid games, and dissecting why this quadrilogy is a complete masterpiece, while also being a complete metafictional nightmare. And I'll be doing each one at a time whenever I get the time to do them. I was gonna make this one big video, then I realized how long this was going to actually be. And with our intel all gathered, it's time for us to commence our mission. Godspeed, I'll need it. But first, Shilling time. So first of all, I got my old Twitter back, so that's gonna be my main from now on.
Do you remember me now?
Can't be. You were killed in Zanzibar.
My main Twitter account is Top Brick Boss, and my alt account is Lone Grips. Follow whichever one you want, I guess. I also have Instagram, that one too. And I have El Patreon, you can give me money. If I get $1,000, I'll post feed pics or something. Oh, by the way, before I forget, I have a new podcast now. The podcast is called A Film Sheet, and you can subscribe and watch our new episodes right now. If you want to see me talk movies with Ellis Mark and Jaden from The Sonic Show, hit the link down below and subscribe. Not convinced yet? Here's one of our funniest moments. Wow, wasn't that moment hilarious? These moments and more on our podcast Film Sheet. Anyways, that's all. Here's the actual YouTube video. The year is 1986, and a man named Hideo Kojima has just joined Konami. Now this man, Hideo Kojima, has had dreams of being a filmmaker. Sadly, those dreams didn't exactly work out, and he was going to school for economics instead. That is, until he saw Super Mario and went, what if the Princess Castle scene was 4 hours long? So he went to this company called Konami to get a game development job. Meanwhile, some other team was making this action game for the MSX. But after some issues, Kojima was then just thrown onto the project, where he realized the MSX was a giant piece of shit that could only render 2 enemies at a time. But then Kojima remembered the movie The Great Escape, and went, wait a minute, what if instead of shooting enemies, you instead hide from them? This led to Metal Gear, one of the first stealth games ever made, and an absolute pioneer in the genre. It was so successful, in fact, that behind Kojima's back, Konami made an NES port, and it's a complete garbage, but it was kind of a success in the West, properly introducing us Americans to Metal Gear. So Konami did the whole make shit behind Kojima's back again thing. And while Kojima was busy working on Snatcher, a cinematic cyberpunk anime game, which actually includes characters and ideas that would be reused in the Metal Gear series.
Metal Gear?
That's a pretty weird name.
Konami made an entire NES sequel just without Kojima's involvement called Snake's Revenge. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Kojima didn't even know this game existed until he was on a train ride with someone who was working on Snake's Revenge and said, yeah, our game sucks. Please make a real sequel, Kojima. So then Kojima made Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, released only in Japan in July of 1990. Again, I won't be discussing these games because they aren't important and get instantly retconned anyways, but all these games did allow Metal Gear to be a brand before Metal Gear Solid. And Kojima, even back then, had wishes of making a playable movie, which he would try to do again with the game Police Knots. A game that, like Snatcher, also includes entire characters that are reused in Metal Gear, but also was a game that never left Japan. And all of Kojima's games were always limited by technology. That is until one day, Kojima heard rumblings of a video game console. One that could run 3D games, full 3D. Games came on discs so you could store more stuff, have better music, better cutscenes, voice acting, full voice acting. A console that would change the gaming landscape forever, where Kojima could make the cinematic game of his dreams. The Panasonic 3DO. But then the 3DO died because it was a $700 piece of shit. But then the PS1 came out and Kojima was all like, well, guess I'm working with this thing then. Alaska, the Bering Sea. We see a large submarine swimming through the ocean. We hear from someone who we can only assume is our commander, and he gives us background information on the game we're about to play. Basically, there's a giant nuclear weapons storage space on this place called Shadow Moses Island. It's been overtaken by this elite group of soldiers called Foxhound, who are now revolting against the US government, alongside giving a list of demands.
They're demanding that the government turn over the remains of Big Boss, and they say that if their demands are not met within 24 hours, they'll launch a nuclear weapon.
Well, that's not good. If you're confused already, by the way, don't worry. Metal Gear Solid 1 is something of a soft reboot for the series, and everything is explained as the story goes along. In fact, maybe a little too much. And trust me, there will be a lot of other times where you're actually confused. Basically, what you need to know right now is bad guys have access to nuke. Stop them. We're also given a list of 6 Foxhound members. Presumably, these are our bosses throughout the game.
Psycho Mantis, with his powerful psychic abilities. Sniper Wolf, the beautiful and deadly sharpshooter. Decoy Octopus, master of disguise. Vulcan Raven, giant and shaman. And Revolver Ocelot, specialist in interrogation and a formidable gunfighter. And finally, in charge of them, Foxhound squad leader, Liquid Snake.
Liquid Snake.
And after all of that, we're booted right into the menu. Metal Gear Solid. And once we actually boot the game up, we're greeted with Gaelic opera. This song is called The Best Is Yet to Come, and I have no idea why it's here. But honestly, it does so much to set up Metal Gear Solid 1's odd tone. A tone we'll be well acquainted with, trust me. But we, the tactical soldier we're playing as, sneak into the base, and we hear one small glimpse of Liquid Snake's evil British voice.
You'll be through here. I know it. I'm going to swat down a couple of bothersome flies.
He ascends up the elevator when you get a call on our codec.
This is Snake. Colonel, can you hear me?
This is where our cast of heroes gets a proper introduction, as well as the actual gameplay, which honestly, I won't be going over too much, as I want the main focus to be on the story. But just so you know, this is an incredibly deep stealth game, where you have to watch out for things like puddles making noises and footprints in snow attracting enemies. And you have no weapons at the start either, which makes this all even more intense. But anyways, after going up this elevator and seeing the title, Metal Gear Solid again, we head into this heliport area, where we gotta contact our boys again.
It's Snake. I'm in front of the disposal facility.
Excellent, Snake. Age hasn't slowed you down one bit.
He said it!
And this is Colonel Campbell, who was forced out of retirement just for this mission. And yes, he is played by Grandpa Max from Ben 10.
Good morning!
How's that sneaking suit working out?
That woman is Dr. Naomi Hunter, a geneticist who drugged us up with nanomachines and peptides. She's also part of our radio squad, but she's not the only woman on our crew.
Nice to meet you, Snake. It's an honor to speak to a living legend like yourself.
That's Mei Ling, a Chinese-American woman who speaks in a very thick English, even though she was born in America, which is why every subsequent Metal Gear game she's in removes her accent entirely.
Basically, it means that your desire can get you into trouble if you're not careful.
It's not even a different voice actress, it's the same one, she just stops doing the accent. Oh, and of course there's our main character, Solid Snake,
who is now in Fortnite.
A total badass held up by shockingly great characterization. He has a very dry, somewhat sarcastic sense of humor.
We'll be monitoring your movements by radar, so contact us by codec anytime you want.
Got it. I'll call if I'm feeling lonely.
This goes a lot into making him a memorable character. Even though he's a lone wolf, I work by myself guy, he's not uncharismatic. What he is, though, is a real goddamn bastard.
By the way, sorry to disappoint you, but I did manage to smuggle out my smokes.
How did you do that?
In my stomach.
Anyway, so the bad guys have access to Russian military equipment.
Behind D.
But now it's time for us to infiltrate Shadow Moses.
Snake, this is McDonald Miller.
Oh shit, almost forgot about this guy, McDonald Miller. He's apparently worked with Snake before and thought we could use some help. Gee golly, what a nice fellow. Oh, and there's also Nastasha Romanenko, a character you can completely ignore throughout the entire game.
This is Nastasha Romanenko. A pleasure to work with you, Solid Snake.
She is a weapons specialist with a thick Russian accent. Really fun character, and we won't talk about her ever again. Anyways, first course of action is save this guy named Donald Anderson. This dude's the chief of DARPA, which is a real-world defense agency, by the way. We sneak in and hear about an intruder and a woman in a cell. So clearly we're not the only ones who aren't supposed to be here, just roaming around Shadow Moses. But we sneak a bit further and see a guy taking a shit. As well as a woman in a cell. But neither of these are important. What is important is my boy, Donnie Anderson, who we thankfully find and are able to drop into his cell.
I'm here to save you. You're the DARPA chief, Donald Anderson, right?
You here to save me, huh?
But first, though, we need some information. So here's the bad news. The terrorists can launch a nuke. And the way they're able to...
Metal Gear. It can't be.
Metal Gear Rex. The code name for the new Metal Gear prototype.
And what is Metal Gear? Well, a giant fucking robot, of course.
Well, goddamn. That's one
Metal Gear.
Not only that, but the terrorists need 2 nuclear detonation codes. And already, they're halfway there.
They found out my password. Psycho Mantis can read people's minds.
Psycho Mantis?
You can't resist.
Psycho Mantis.
All the while, the girl in the other cell has been listening in on us.
Listen up, you nosy bitch!
The good news, though, is that there is one way to stop the nuclear launch. And that's by getting these card keys from a man named Baker, who's also held hostage here in Shadow Moses. But then, almost out of nowhere...
What is it?
The DARPA chief dies. So clearly something weird's going on here. And already Snake's questioning the Colonel.
Colonel, are you hiding something from me?
Absolutely not.
It was truly more sus than a character from a manga.
But we don't have time for questioning now, as we're obviously trapped in a jail cell. We hear some weird noises outside and see the door open in front of us, where we're encountered by a naked man. Unless you're playing the Master Collection version, or any version that isn't the US version, as it's sadly been replaced by just a pair of boxers, which is a real damn shame because the shock of seeing just a naked pixelated man is hilarious. I'm not entirely sure why they cut this out entirely in the Master Collection version. You can fuck prostitutes uncensored in Cyberpunk. What's the problem here?
Double standard! Don't move!
But either way, a gun is held up to our face. And it's that woman from that other cell disguised as a soldier. This character is Meryl Silverberg, and we'll learn more about her later. By the way, earlier in the game, there's a SOCOM you can pick up. And if you picked it up, Snake will point his gun at Meryl, challenging her to take the shot. But if you miss it, Snake will instead grab the muzzle and dare her to shoot him. Now, sure, the dialogue doesn't change at all, but it's still such a cool, small thing. But sadly, this bitch can't take the shot to save her life, even though she gets very mad when you call her a rookie. Haha, women moment. But then we're ambushed by a squadron of soldiers. Soldiers that Meryl can't shoot her gun at. I just made this joke. Until Snake desperately yells at her to shoot at them.
I'm telling you, shoot!
So after this encounter, Meryl then runs away, where we get an ass close-up shot. This is important, by the way. She then fires at us, goes up an elevator, and we see Psycho Mantis for only one small brief encounter. Again, real weird shit's going on. But anyways, let's find this Baker guy. So we head down to this weapons warehouse basement and blow up this wall here, leading us to a secret room with a very poor signal, where we do find Kenneth Baker, near unconscious, tied to a wall in a room filled with C4.
Right. Touch that wire, and the C4 will blow up along with the old man.
And this here is our first real boss, one of the members of Foxhound. And that man is none other than...
Revolver Ocelot. Revolver Ocelot. I've been waiting for you, Solid Snake.
Already, this guy with his big-ass iron, he's a real threat. He also reiterates Solid Snake's legacy as a legendary soldier. And of course, we Westerners don't quite know why yet. What we do know, though, is that Revolver Ocelot might like guns.
This is the greatest handgun ever made. The Colt's single-action army.
His age implies that he's been doing this for a long while. And his name, well, it's pretty obvious.
Now I'll show you why they call me Revolver.
We then get our first official boss of the game, where we have to chase Revolver Ocelot down the square little hallway, all while dodging the explosives in the way, all of which add up to a great yet tricky and intense boss fight. But thankfully I had my G Fuel today, so we beat him pretty easily.
You're pretty good. Just what I'd expect from the man with the same code as the boss.
With that being said, though, he's not done with us yet.
But I'm just getting warmed up. What? My hand!
Embarrassing! Yeah, thankfully we're kinda saved by a cyborg ninja who tries to kill us. Ocelot then runs away because he's a pussy. And the ninja then suddenly malfunctions and he runs away.
Who the hell?
That's what I'm saying. Google, show me this guy's balls.
So the good news, Kenneth Baker is saved. The bad news, he talked.
I never had any training on how to resist torture.
So now the bad guys are one step closer to pulling an Oppenheimer. He also doesn't have that card we need either, but rather Meryl now has it. This gets Snake thinking.
A new recruit. Could that be the Colonel's niece?
This is explained in the mission briefing cutscene that's easily skippable. In this giant 20-minute cutscene, there's one part that explains that Colonel Campbell's motive for being involved in this is because his niece Meryl is involved, and this woman right here, the one we talked to earlier, is Meryl. I do wish this information was in the actual game story and not in an easily missable cutscene that you have to dig through the main menu to find. But knowing Kojima, he would have gone for 20 minutes about it anyways, so, like, maybe it's for the best. But back to the actual story, we have to call Meryl now. So of course, we need her codec number, except one problem. Kenneth Baker forgot what it was.
Oh yeah, let me tell you, it's... Oh, sorry, I forgot.
Embarrassing! This, of course, means it's the perfect time to talk about the military-industrial complex and nuclear war.
The amount of spent nuclear fuel and plutonium is increasing even today.
Yes, that is real-life footage, by the way. And honestly, it's really effective. It's very uncanny, and reminds you that nuclear warfare is a very real threat. One that's deeply existential and terrifying.
We live in an age when any small country can have a nuclear weapons program.
What about the other superpowers?
Russia and China still maintain a significant nuclear presence. Complete nuclear disarmament is an impossibility.
And the big reason Metal Gear Rex is being developed in the first place is as a deterrent, on top of Kenneth Baker's way of saving arms tech from literally going bankrupt. So, in other words, they'll say it's a deterrent, but in reality, it's to make a bunch of money. Welcome to Fun Video Game. But then, right as he's about to reveal his juiciest secret...
What did you do to me? Oh, no. They're just using you for...
Kenneth Baker dies of a heart attack too, and clearly something weirder is going on here. But again, we don't have time to think about it, just to contact Meryl. But how do we get it since, you know, Baker forgot? Well, there is one thing I left out of Baker's conversation.
Oh, that's right. It should be on the back of the CD case. Try to contact her.
Wait a minute, CD case? I was never given a... Wait a minute. Does he mean the, oh my god? You have to look on the actual physical back of the game case to find it. Holy hell. This is the next shocking big revelation of Metal Gear Solid. This game is metafiction. Basically, metafiction means a work of fiction that plays around with things like the fourth wall or conventional narrative structures. Obviously, the easiest examples are comedies like a Deadpool or the Jump Street movies, but also in deep, esoteric art house dramas like Synecdoche, New York, and 8½. And of course, video games are no exception. In fact, some of the most popular games ever made are metafiction, including a little game called The Undertale. And in fact, in a Nintendo Everything interview, Toby Fox actually lists Metal Gear Solid as an influence. So there you have it. If it weren't for MGS1, we wouldn't have Sans Undertale porn. Also, Baker mentioned a guy named Hal Emmerich, who can also maybe help us. That's the guy running the whole Metal Gear Rex project. But of course, first things first, we gotta contact Meryl.
Who are you?
I'm the fool that your uncle sent all alone into the middle of this whole mess.
And at first, she's very standoffish until she figures out who exactly we are.
Could you be Snake? Are you Solid Snake?
That's what some people call me.
The legendary Solid Snake? You? Sorry about before. I wasn't sure if you were one of the good guys.
It's kind of adorable seeing Meryl geek out like this. And of course, Snake tries to rizz her up in a small little interaction that is very push and pull and is really great. Just a long example of really great chemistry.
Oh, just what I'd expect from the legendary Solid Snake. You trying to sweep me off my feet?
Don't worry, you'll land back on them once you meet me. The reality is no match for the legend, I'm afraid.
Oh, I don't believe that.
You don't know how hard it is for me to not play more of this for you. It's so good. Anyways, Meryl and Snake both suspect that something is going on. There's something about Metal Gear that's clearly beyond their knowledge. Snake then asks Meryl where exactly Dr. Emmerich is, and Meryl replies with his location. Snake then tells Meryl to stay behind, but Meryl is very reluctant at first, wanting to go with him. She then, trauma dumps Snake, of course.
I don't know what happened. I just couldn't pull the trigger right away.
Stop fucking crying, bitch! Where? I don't wanna fucking hear it!
And of course, we naturally put this dumb woman in her place by grading so hard on her.
Okay, let me try to say this another way. Stay the hell out of my way.
Okay, Snake. I'll be a good girl.
So why do good girls like bad guys?
Meryl then tells us where Dr. Emmerich is, so we gotta do what most gamers don't do. Go outside. And thankfully, Meryl can help us unlock the cargo doors to the outside area. The bad news, though, she immediately disobeys our orders for her to stay behind.
Okay, so we'll meet at the nuclear warhead storage building.
Wait, you said you'd stay put and be a good girl.
I changed my mind.
Anyways, the cargo doors are full of infrared lasers, so we gotta smoke our way out. So remember, kids, smoking is always helpful in certain situations. However, the moment we go outside, we hear from this guy named Deep Throat.
Snake, be careful. There are claymore mines around there.
We don't know who he is or why Kojima decided to name him a Deep Throat, which, come to think of it, is like a Vivzy Pop move. Sex. But he tells us there are bombs in the area and we need a mine detector. You could also just crawl through the whole area too to pick them up. That works too. Then we encounter our next boss, a giant tank piloted by Vulcan Raven, a native Alaskan who can literally talk to ravens. We then take down this tank by just throwing grenades into it, and we beat him, but not for the last time.
He is just as you said. In battle, he is as if possessed by a demon.
We then sneak through this nuclear warhead storage building. And after a whole thing where we gotta backtrack to get a remote control missile to blow up a thing in a poison room, and yes, it is very annoying, we finally make it.
What's that? Psycho Mantis.
So yeah, something else is here. And the atmosphere here resembles more of a horror movie. There's so much tension, it really builds up this threat. It almost feels kind of like something out of Silent Hill, which, by the way, would come out 5 months later. But turns out it's just that cyborg ninja from earlier, who seems to be here for the same reason we are, Dr. Emmerich. A character whose first introduction is him pissing his pants. I mean, a cyborg ninja's about to kill you. What else you gonna do? Except the ninja's not here for Emmerich. He's here for...
Where is my friend? Snake.
He's here for us.
I've been waiting for you, Snake.
Who are you?
Neither enemy nor friend. I am back from a world where such words are meaningless.
So whatever happened to him, this cyborg ninja has lost all sense of reality and morality. And yet for some reason wants to fight us to the death.
I've waited a long time for this day. Now I want to enjoy the moment. I will kill you, or you will kill me. It makes no difference.
And of course, also we get this classic line.
What's with these guys? It's like one of my Japanese animes.
Homo, we slipping on semen. We was jerking off in the bathroom.
He also hides in the closet like a little pussy boy, which is very funny and very comedic. But of course, that leaves us alone with this cyborg ninja guy. So now we gotta fight him, fist to fist, man to man. We gotta punch this guy till his health goes completely down. And while it is a simple boss fight, it's also very tricky, especially when he teleports and uses stealth camouflage. But then things start getting weird as he interrupts the boss battle. And at first it's, just for different phases, when the boss gets harder. But then these mini cutscenes start getting weirder, interjecting things like him enjoying the pain.
Like old times. I've been waiting for this pain.
And eventually he starts pausing in the middle of the boss entirely.
Hurt me more.
I can really only imagine how freaked out gamers in the late 90s probably were. Still used to normal average boss fights, and not used to the boss actually reacting to the pain you're inflicting on it.
That's it. I remember that punch.
And then things get freakier when the music cuts out. The fight's not over yet, by the way. It's still going on, even though his health is completely down. It feels endless. It feels agonizing. But thankfully, there is an end.
I felt that, Snake. Do you remember me now?
Can't be.
So Snake seems to know this guy from a...
What's happening?
Damn, skill issue. Things are getting stranger and stranger, so Snake calls the Colonel.
Gray Fox. Colonel, that ninja is Gray Fox.
So yeah, Snake knew that guy, and seems like everyone else does too. Naomi then reveals that he's one big experimental guinea pig, a product of quote-unquote gene therapy experiments. Furthermore, the genome soldiers, the guys who've been fighting the whole time, are the results of these experiments, being enhanced with militaristic gene therapy. This isn't entirely far off from reality, by the way, as gene therapy is actively being researched for soldiers, which is, yeah, freaky shit. Of course, immediately after this, Snake assures Hal Emmerich that he's not a bad guy, which leads into...
I always work alone.
Alone? Are you an otaku too?
Thanks, Kojima. A part of me likes to pretend that this character is just Kojima's self-insert. And no, I won't elaborate why. Also, in this scene, the reason that Hal Emmerich wants to build giant walking death robots is because, I shit you not, he really likes anime. Thanks, Kojima. By the way, I think now's a good time to talk about MGS's tone. You might notice that already a lot of really weird stuff is happening. On the surface, the action military genre of this game isn't too far off from like Call of Duty.
Call of Duty! Call of Duty! Call of Duty!
But the game also has just really weird over-the-top anime bullshit, completely juxtaposed against the real-world near-future politics that the game goes into the essay levels of detail on, which is then further contradicted by the humor of Metal Gear. Now, in any other work, this would absolutely be a bad thing, but Metal Gear Solid embraces this tonal inconsistency so heavily. In other words, in Metal Gear Solid, tonal inconsistency is the tone. And funny enough, this weird fluctuating tone absolutely fits what Metal Gear Solid is about. This will help pretty much the whole series make sense, so just keep it in mind.
The CIA killed John F. Kennedy.
But also, Otacon doesn't want to work on death robots, and in fact, it didn't even know Metal Gear Rex had a nuclear cannon on it.
I was never told exactly what they armed Rex with. I only know it's equipped with a Vulcan cannon, a laser, and a railgun.
So for the whole game, this dude's just been getting used to make a giant nuclear robot. And naturally, he's pretty devastated by this.
Damn. Damn.
And that's not the sad part. The sad part is that this is a generational thing.
The truth is, my grandfather was part of the Manhattan Project. He suffered with the guilt for the rest of his life. And my father, He was born on August 6th, 1945.
The day of the Hiroshima bomb. God's got a sense of humor, all right.
So in his DNA, Otacon has nuclear weaponry written all over it. And as a result, there's almost kind of a level of generational trauma. He wants to be a scientist to help humanity, but he feels almost doomed by his family to damn it. It's really sad stuff, actually. But thankfully, he offers to help us. So first things first is to update Meryl.
Meryl, the engineer's okay.
That's a relief.
I want you to look after him. Where are you now?
Very close.
There she is! Over there!
Oh no! Damn, they've spotted me.
Meryl, what happened?
Well, fuck. So now we gotta find Meryl by staring at her asshole, and I'm not kidding.
She had such a cute way of walking. She kind of wiggles her behind.
You were really looking.
Well, she's got a very cute behind.
What did Kojima mean by this? Our boy Hal then gives us his brand new code name.
Call me Otacon.
Otacon?
It stands for Otaku Convention.
What did Kojima mean by this? But anyways, Otacon's ready and willing to help us now.
I won't take part in murder anymore.
Whatever.
Thankfully, he has stealth camo too, so he's safe. But the important thing now is to find Meryl. But first, let's call Campbell, where you can have one of the many optional conversations in the game. There are a lot of these, and quite a few of them you can easily miss. But calling at the right times do reward you with extra character development, and really showcases the ideologies of these characters.
You're worried about Meryl?
Not exactly. It's just that she's holding the detonation code override keys. They're our last chance of stopping that nuclear launch.
You're a cold man. Your mission is more important than the life of your companions?
This is war. Survival is the name of the game. Sometimes you have to be cold to survive.
Stuff like this adds so much to the characters and themes of the story, which I think is really interesting. There's so much optional, extra awesome shit that you can just easily miss. It's kind of absurd. Anyways, now we're at the floor where Meryl's at, and dog, what the hell is that music? Really creepy shit too. It's an eerie vocal thing, and yet they're not real vocals, they're synthesized. It's like an auditory uncanny valley. Of course, this creepiness is kind of undermined when we're looking for Meryl by identifying her ass, which, by the way, you identify by hearing the noise it makes. You see, I told you it was important. You didn't believe me, but it is. So we run into the girls' restroom with her, which, by the way, we can optionally get reprimanded for.
Snake, that's a ladies' bathroom.
I know that. Saw Meryl come in here.
So you're waiting after her? Are you some kind of pervert?
Meryl then sneaks up on us, and after checking on if she's okay in a very solid snake way.
I had no idea you were so feminine.
This is no time to try and hit on me, Snake.
We start getting a lot of insight into her character, and a scene that's easily my favorite in the whole game, where she starts really reflecting on her past and where she is now. Her expectations of being a soldier versus actually being one.
The truth is, the uniform smelled like blood.
The game then peels apart the idea of the badass war game. It's something it did hint at doing earlier, but we don't see until now. Starting off with Snake tragically tossing aside the idea of being considered a real hero.
You guys were real heroes.
There are no heroes in war. All the heroes I know are either dead or in prison.
Everything Meryl praises Snake for, he just completely shuts down.
But Snake, you're a hero, aren't you?
I'm just a man who's good at what he does. Killing.
This really reveals that Snake is just one big disillusioned war vet. He's a personified deconstruction of the NES action hero. He's given an entire personal conflict, and that conflict is not really a positive one. He's nihilistic to a complete fault.
I've never fought for anyone but myself. I've got no purpose in life, no ultimate goal.
Come on.
It's only when I'm cheating death on the battlefield. The only time I feel truly alive.
Meryl then turns to the mirror and really reflects on herself, who she is as a woman and why she became a soldier in the first place.
You know, I don't use makeup the way other women do. I hardly ever look at myself in the mirror. I've always despised that kind of woman. I always dreamed of becoming a soldier.
This right here is very interesting, especially for a game made in 1998. For one thing, this makes Meryl's character very intriguing. She has very real aspirations of being a soldier. Aspirations that are pulled apart and broken when she has to actually kill someone.
I don't know what happened. I just couldn't pull the trigger right away. I never had any problems in training. But when I thought about my bullets tearing through those soldiers' bodies, I hesitated.
This is one of the first times where an action game, a violent war game, really pondered on the effects of taking a human life. Of course, we the player didn't notice that because we're Snake, the jaded war hero, but Meryl, the rookie character, certainly does.
Seeing other people die makes you feel alive, huh? You love war and don't want it to stop? Is it the same with all great soldiers throughout history?
And it's interesting seeing Metal Gear start to deconstruct that idea, really pondering the idea of what it means to take a human life. But also there's something else, Meryl's own personal conflict, involving dreams that she projected onto herself.
My father. He was killed in action when I was younger. I thought that if I became a soldier, I could understand him better. The truth is, I was just afraid of looking at myself, afraid of having to make my own decisions in life. But I'm not gonna lie to myself anymore. It's time I took a long, hard look at myself.
I really adore how Metal Gear Solid really dives in this kind of insecurity. Meryl is recontextualizing who she is, without invalidating who she already was, and is contrasted with Snake's cold, hard attitude.
I want to know who I am, what I'm capable of. I want to know why I've lived the way I've lived until now. I want to know.
Take a good look. You won't get another chance for a while. You should wash your face, too, while you're at it.
It's almost as if Meryl is kind of the representation for the player who wants real violence, real action. And like how Meryl views Snake, views the occupation of being a soldier as a cool thing she wants to be. Oh my god, I want Kojima to give me some back shots! Back to the mission, however, Meryl has one of our card keys, which is weird because there should be 3 keys. But anyways, back to finding Metal Gear, except there's no guards or music. But anyways, let's head for the—
My head. Oh, it hurts.
Are you okay?
I'm fine.
I accuse you of camping.
Snake, how do you like me?
What the?
Oh, hurry, make love to me.
Sorry, I prefer men.
I love underlying slobber.
So clearly Meryl's under mind control, so we have to knock her out non-lethally. This, of course, means beating women. What did Kojima mean by this?
Gonna be a good boy for mommy? You gonna make me happy?
So now, of course, you all know we're at the Psycho Mantis boss fight. The famous one in the whole game.
I'm Psycho Mantis.
This is the part where the game starts fucking with you, reading your memory card and vibrating your controller on the floor.
You've been playing
Super Mario. Super Mario, bro.
And of course, I'm sure you all know by now, this guy will read and dodge your input. That is, unless you plug the controller into the second port.
Why? Why couldn't I read your mind?
Of course, yes, it's still fucking insane, and a great part of MGS's metafiction. But after threatening to kill Meryl and we beat her some more, we finally take down Psycho Mantis.
Colonel, your niece is going to be okay.
So we call the Colonel, but Naomi insinuates that maybe we actually do like Meryl, with Snake, of course, just immediately brushing it off. The Psycho Mantis then tells us where Metal Gear is, and Snake asks him why. And turns out, Psycho Mantis was working for Liquid just to kill people. And turns out, Psycho Mantis is an ultra r/atheism nihilist.
That shit stank, don't it?
Ugh. All from his personal trauma and all the minds he's dived into.
And each mind that I peered into was stuffed with the same single object of obsession. That selfish and atavistic desire to pass on one seed. It was enough to make me sick. Every living thing on this planet exists to mindlessly pass on their DNA. We're designed that way. And that's why there is war.
Some of this comes from personal trauma as well. His mother died during childbirth and his dad hated him for it. He also, in fact, burned down his entire village with his dad in it as a kid. So yeah, no wonder he's kind of fucked. He then, however, reveals that he identifies with Snake, as Snake is also kind of a nihilist who doesn't care about anybody, and this is not a good thing.
I've seen through evil. You, Snake, you're just like the boss. No, you're worse. Compared to you, I'm not so bad.
So at this point, hopefully you see what the game is doing. A lot of the characters are coming to terms with some kind of generational trauma. Otacon's grandfather and his father have some kind of coincidence with nuclear weaponry. Meryl is a soldier because of her father and her wish to learn more about him. A Psycho Mantis, meanwhile, claims to have no future or past, as anything remotely relating to his genes are completely washed away and dead. In other words, this game is about genes versus ideology. A lot of these characters feel like their genes are responsible for their current actions, whether it's occupation occupation, or morality. They look to their own past to try and read the future. However, as Snake says after beating Psycho Mantis,
a strong man doesn't need to read the future. He makes his own.
So really, the game's about putting matters into your own hands. These characters are trying to find the meaning of life through their past, but in actuality, it's them who define it. Psycho Mantis furthermore proves himself wrong by helping Snake and Meryl, actually finding pleasure in just helping two random people.
This is the first time I've ever used my power to help someone. It's strange. It feels kind of nice.
Of course, however, Snake goes back to being the same stoic nihilist as before, completely refusing to connect with Meryl at all.
So, tell me, Snake, what's your name? Your real name?
A name means nothing on the battlefield.
How old are you?
Old enough to know what death looks like.
Which is why Psycho Mantis deems him as worse. Psycho Mantis is at least fighting for some vague idea of something. Snake is just doing whatever the game instructs us to do. And his refusal to actually connect with other people is pretty pathetic.
Other people just complicate my life. I don't like to get involved.
You're a sad, lonely man.
But again, no time to lose. We gotta head into this wolf cavern, where Snake says he was a musher once, but the gameplay, they didn't tell me that shit. Although it is very funny to struggle through this whole scene, only to come out with...
Snake, what's wrong? I thought you were good with dogs.
Next up is this giant area, but the floor is filled with bombs. And thankfully, though, Meryl knows where they are thanks to Snake. And she makes a nice little trail for us that we can just ignore by walking straight. And then Meryl gets shot. Meryl! So yeah, there's a sniper aiming down at us. But thankfully, Meryl can give a very heartfelt, emotional speech.
I was a fool. I wanted to be a soldier. But war is ugly. There's nothing glamorous about it. Snake, please save yourself. Go on living and don't give up on people.
However, the Colonel begs us to save Meryl, his niece. And we also find out who the sniper is.
Must be Sniper Wolf, Foxhound's best shooter.
She's also the best doxer, Snake. Watch out. Only one problem, we gotta go all the way back to the furthest spot in the game, which is where we can get the sniper rifle. Yeah, the backtracking kinda fucking sucks in this game. It's to the point where even Snake hates it.
The second floor basement of the tank hangar. I have to go all the way back there? Well, yeah. What's wrong with you, Otacon?
So we make it back and take out Sniper Wolf with the help of Valium. Remember, kids, be like Snake and take highly addictive drugs. Now it's time to save Meryl wherever she is. That is, until we're caught and properly meet Sniper Wolf, who threatens to dox us, you fucking monster.
You're my special prey.
But then we're knocked out and wake up in a mysterious bed.
Can you hear me, Solid Snake?
We finally hear Liquid Snake right in front of us.
I always knew that one day I would meet you. The man who stole what was rightly mine. The man who stole my birthright.
Clearly, he has a pretty massive grudge against us. But the question is, for what?
I'm the man you stole everything good from. And now, after the sacrifice of our brothers, after 30 long years, finally, the two of us meet. The brother of light and the brother of dark.
There's also some kind of genetic dysfunction going around. They still need the DNA of this mysterious figure known as Big Boss, the man they were ransoming for at the beginning of the game.
Then we'll be able to cure them?
No. We still have to get our hands on Big Boss's DNA.
So I guess now it's time to briefly discuss again, almost everything will be explained in-game, as well as the rest of the series. But here's what you need to know. Basically, Big Boss was once a legendary soldier. That is, until at some point, he became a war criminal, trying to build this thing called Outer Heaven, which is one big giant military state. Weirdly enough, though, he's such a good soldier that America decided to preserve his remains. And for some reason, which we will find out, Liquid wants them. Speaking of which, though, we just woke up.
There definitely is a resemblance. Don't you think, little brother? Or should I say, big brother? I'm not sure. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
So we're finally face-to-face, eye-to-eye with Liquid Snake, as well as eye-to-eye with Sniper Wolf and an armless Revolver Ocelot. So Liquid claims to be our brother, and he's about to explain why.
You and I are both the last surviving sons of Big Boss.
Sadly, he's carried away as negotiations are now breaking down, and the bad guys might actually have to resort to launching a nuke. Oh shit. Also, apparently, Decoy Octopus is dead, so that's one less boss to fight. So Liquid and Sniper Wolf leave, and we're left with Revolver Ocelot, where we get the absolute worst part of the game. That part, of course, being Ocelot's electric bed torture scene, where you have to mash the circle button until your thumb starts goddamn bleeding. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. This part fucking sucks. Like, it's legitimately painful to play. I'm not exaggerating. It hurts. And you have to do it like multiple times too. Like, this is not a fun part whatsoever. But now we're put in this cell right in front of the guy who was naked earlier. And turns out he has both a cold and the runs. Jesus, this guy just can't catch a break. Speaking of not catching breaks,
The DARPA chief?
apparently neither can Snake, as we're face to face with the DARPA chief, his body rotting with maggots as if he's been here for days. But yet we just saw him a few hours earlier. So we call Campbell to inform our crew again. And to add insult to injury, Campbell knew that Metal Gear was indeed a nuclear weapon the whole time. And pressures from the US government are forcing him to stay silent. This is, of course, at the expense of Snake's trust.
This has to do with the president's reputation and America's place as the dominant superpower.
So patriotism is your excuse for circumventing the Constitution?
Please, Snake. Just stop them.
Why should I?
But still, none of that matters now, as Colonel tells us to forget about the keys we've been looking for and just go ahead and destroy Metal Gear. On top of course, one other thing.
Meryl, right?
Yeah.
I'll save her.
We then get yet another shitty torture scene, but we do get some good insight on Ocelot's character, where he's a Soviet comrade who wants to bring Russia to its former glory.
Among the Mujahideen guerrillas, I was known and feared as Shalashaska.
However, back in her jail cell, Snake opens up to Naomi. She reveals that family is a traumatic topic for her. Again, playing into the idea of generational trauma. And Snake responds to her by giving her the one man who even claimed to be part of his family. That man being his father, who Snake killed. And if you're wondering why, well, there's actually a good reason.
There was a man who said he was my father.
Where is he?
Dead. By my own hand.
Big Boss.
What? Big Boss? I had no idea.
So Big Boss was Snake's father, or at least he claimed to be. And Snake, under the government's instructions, was sent in to kill him. This is also truly why Psycho Mantis could see himself and Snake. Both killed their fathers and have no real identity or view of the world. He barely even has any friends, only calling Roy Campbell one still for some reason. And Gray Fox, a man he fought against in a war. But in spite of that, they only viewed it as a job, never letting it get in the way of their friendship, which makes him wanting to kill Snake all the more weirder. Naomi responds with empathy. She didn't have a real family either. Due to this, she pursued a career in genetic research, hoping to find fate or family or something, just discovering who the hell she is. Snake then asks if Naomi can find his fate, in the same way she's looking for hers.
So what about my fate? You know my DNA sequence, don't you?
Your fate? I'm sorry, I have no idea.
Of course not. You're a scientist, not a fortune teller.
And that's where the call ends. Well, whatever the answer is eventually going to be, Otacon's here to give us some ketchup, which we can use as fake blood to lure the guard into our cage, beating him the fuck up. And after triumphantly getting our stuff back, and after going through the other worst part of the game, which is the stairwell fight, we encounter Liquid on the roof of this building, piloting that Hind D from earlier. And clearly he's not going down without a fight. The issue, we don't have any weapons to stop it, so we use a rope to rattle down to the bottom of the building, where you find a Stinger missile, a broken elevator, and Otacon.
How did you get up here?
The elevator, of course.
Embarrassing! Otacon then asks Snake if love can bloom on a battlefield.
Do you think love can bloom, even on a battlefield?
No.
Anyways, let's take down Liquid.
So, the snakes finally come out of this hole. Are you ready now, my brother?
Why are you calling me brother?
Sadly, this British fucker doesn't really tell us. One boss fight later, we take down that Hind D, blowing up Liquid in the process.
That takes care of the cremation.
So long story, and one elevator fight scene later, we make it outside. Of course, though, it's never that easy in this game. This is where we get the worst news of all time. Otacon's a massive simp.
It's her! Wolf? Sniper Wolf?
Yes, it's her. It's definitely her.
Otacon, you sound like you're happy.
You gotta be ashamed of yourself. Real talk. You gotta be ashamed of yourself.
Because of this, he begs us not to kill her. However, she's out here to kill us, so we don't have much of a choice. So one boss later, we kill her. All because I was able to pop more Valium than her. Which of course means our next depressing cutscene.
I was born on the battlefield. Raised on the battlefield. Gunfire, sirens, and screams. They were my lullabies.
Sniper Wolf was born during the Second Iraqi-Kurdish War, a real war that happened from 1974 to 1975, and resulted in 20,000 people being killed. Sniper Wolf has been seeing war since she was a child, and during the traumas and experiences someone at her age should never be allowed to experience. But then she met a big boss who took her away and saved her. However, this only added to her pessimism, to the point where she joined Liquid to get revenge on the entire world. But in the attempt to avenge her past, she lost something, herself.
I am no longer the wolf I was born to be. In the name of vengeance, I sold my body and my soul. Now I am nothing more than a dog.
But Snake assures her that she'll die a wolf because she spared Meryl's life.
You'll die as the proud wolf you are.
That's where Sniper Wolf realizes something.
I finally understand. I wasn't waiting to kill people. I was waiting for someone to kill me.
Otacon then arrives and reluctantly gives Sniper Wolf her gun, and Snake fulfills Sniper Wolf's final wish. He kills her. Otacon then asks Snake what they've all been fighting for, a question Snake can't seem to answer, as all he does is continue with his mission. This scene, however, gave me a very personal takeaway. War and vengeance don't bring anyone closure, and we become living husks, shells of our former selves. And this game's been doing it the whole time. Metal Gear Solid deconstructs the boss archetype by showing these are real people. People with unfortunate circumstances, and ones who never knew how to get out of them. I mean, would you be able to? It's a haunting and it's sad, and yet it's really something to think about. And the game still isn't over yet. We still got more to go through. Although first things first, we got to swap the disc 2 real quick. So now we're closer than ever to Metal Gear. And the further we get to it, the slower the music becomes, the lesser it is, and the more ominous things become. Ravens start floating around us. Obviously, Vulcan Ravens here, but also, so might be our death. That is until Master Miller calls us.
Snake, I've got something to tell you about Naomi Hunter.
What about her?
Is this conversation secure?
So earlier in the game, it's established that Naomi Hunter did have a grandfather in the FBI. But Miller tells us she's been lying to us the entire time. And after looking into it, he claims she might be a spy working with the terrorists. Of course, he'll call us once he gets more information, but right now we still got a Vulcan Raven to fight. We meet in this giant freezer room.
Welcome, Cossack. This is the end of the road for you. Right, my friends?
So after a long monologue about ravens, Raven tells us he wants to fight us because it's a sport to him. He also views the world in a very Anton Chigurh kind of way, where basically death is destined to you know what I mean? All of these themes are continued after the boss fight, which by the way is the best in the game, where you have to fight him with all of your explosive weapons, all without him detecting you with his giant-ass machine gun. It's super challenging, but also there's a lot of freedom involved in it. Back to our narrative though, we defeat Vulcan Raven, who dies in a pragmatic, matter-of-fact way.
My existence, which is no longer needed in this world. But my body will not remain in this place. My spirit and my flesh will become one with the ravens. In that way, I will return to Mother Earth who bore me.
Once again, Raven's worldview is from the perspective of the cycle of death. And what's interesting is that when he dies, the ravens consume him. And again, it's in this very matter-of-fact way. This is how Raven expects himself to die, and he does. He's not betrayed by his own ravens, this is just how things are. There's a website called Script Routine, a blog that actually analyzes video games. And their article on MGS1 really explains it the best in my opinion. So, because I don't want H-Bomber Guy coming after me, here's the whole thing copied and pasted.
Vulcan Raven is a metaphor for the circularity of biological life forms and the recycling of genetic material from one organism to another. The Raven itself is a symbol of death, and it would seem that the primary reason for its selection here is to show its inevitability. It's no surprise, then, that Vulcan Raven's birds consume him when he's dying. He is a part of them, as they will one day be a part of something else. nothing goes to waste.
And that's someone else's stuff copied and pasted. Subscribe for more. He also claims that Snake isn't quote-unquote created by nature. He also reveals that the entire time Decoy Octopus was the DARPA chief we met. So basically the DARPA chief we talked to was actually an imposter, and the real DARPA chief was rotting away in that cell we were in earlier. And as the Ravens consume Raven himself, he gives Snake one last message, basically saying that Snake will never have peace as long as he lives. We also have 0 time to reflect on this as Miller calls us again.
Snake, it's me.
Master.
It's about Naomi.
What about Naomi?
Oh, you seemed very upset about this. Miller then tells us that Dr. Naomi Hunter isn't Dr. Naomi at all. And in fact, her identity is forged, and she might even be a spy. And because of this, Miller's best course of action is to arrest her. But for some reason, the Colonel still needs something from her.
Without her, we can't complete this mission.
I knew it. You're hiding something.
So weird shit's going on, pissing Snake off even more.
Snake, give me some time.
I don't have any time left for you.
But either way, now we're here, staring right at it. Metal Gear Rex. So we climb up this giant fucking robot here, until Otacon calls us, telling us that Metal Gear's been a project since the 70s. Not only that, but it's able to get around international treaties by not using fuel, and radars can't detect it either, so it's meant to be a stealth weapon. Yes, you heard me. The giant robot is a stealth weapon.
Hi, I'm
Metal Gear.
I'm just wandering around your neighborhood.
So we make it to Metal Gear's terminal, conveniently where Liquid and Ocelot are, so Snake eavesdrops on them. And turns out what's been randomly killing people all over the place was a disease called Fox Die. What's also revealed is that Liquid Snake is reviving Big Boss's dream.
From today, call this place Outer Heaven.
Otacon then calls Snake, and turns out the one PAL card we do have is all 3 cards in one. This leads into the other worst part of the game, which is backtracking to other areas in the building to have the card change temperatures, then going all the way back, inserting that card in, and then doing it again. Aw, yes, I love padding so much.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
During all this, though, Miller calls us about Naomi again, where we get an explanation on what Fox Die is. A virus that seems to be programmed to only attack Foxhound members.
It's some kind of virus that targets specific people.
There are a couple explained immunities, though. The Psycho Mantis, of course, wore a mask, so he was all good. And meanwhile, Sniper Wolf was, I kid you not, addicted to drugs, so she was also probably immune. And we also learn who's spreading it, too.
Did Naomi give you some kind of injection?
Nanomachines.
So yeah, Naomi gave Snake AIDS, basically. Coincidentally, though, Naomi is also put under arrest.
I just placed Naomi under arrest.
Arrest?
She was sending coded messages towards the Alaskan base. I didn't want to believe it, but she must be working with the terrorists.
So things are clearly getting more and more intense, and things get even crazier when we get another codec call from Naomi.
Snake, can you hear me? It's Naomi.
Naomi? What the hell?
So finally, Naomi comes clean. And turns out, yes, Naomi did fake her entire identity. But it's not because she's a spy. In actuality, it's because she didn't know who she was. She was an orphan found in a third world country. She had no identity. She researched genes not to find her parents, but to find herself.
I want to know where I came from. My age, my race, anything.
Her entire life, Naomi lived with no identity, and for so long, she was alone. She holds the generational trauma of someone with no generations. Snake, of course, tries to empathize.
Naomi, you're too worried about the past. Isn't it enough to understand who you are now?
Understand who I am now? Why should I? No one else tries to understand me.
She then reveals that eventually 2 people took her in. One of them being Gray Fox, who ended up being her stepbrother, and a man that during Snake's last mission he ended up killing. And the other person was Big Boss, who ended up safely transporting Naomi to America, giving her a single chance at living a life of her own. And also, Snake killed him too. So the whole time, Naomi was kind of a spy for herself, wanting revenge on Snake.
You killed my benefactor and sent my brother home a cripple. I vowed revenge and joined Foxhound. I knew it was my best chance to meet you, and I prayed for the day that I would.
However, of course, over the course of the mission, she empathized with Snake and realized she was wrong.
You were all I thought about for 2 long years. Like some kind of twisted obsession.
Do you still hate me?
Not exactly. I was partly wrong about you.
She also explains Foxdie and how it is indeed a genetic disease. It's a virus that identifies the DNA of a certain target and attacks their heart that way. That's a very simple explanation, by the way, but essentially this means that Snake is going to die too. It's inevitable, even though he very nobly understands why she wants him dead. So yes, all this is better than The Last of Us Part 2. Oh, by the way, crazier shit, Naomi wasn't the one who chose to use Foxdie. Not only was it part of the operation, but it was—
Hey, what are you doing?
Snake.
Naomi. Snake, I can't allow Naomi to make any more unauthorized transmissions.
Oh, of course, fucking Christ.
Colonel, you double-crossed me.
Snake, there's no time for that.
So things are getting ridiculous, but we still got one more palco to put in, where I'm sure nothing will go wrong.
No, why? Thank you, Snake. Now the detonation code is completed.
So those PAL codes were actually to activate Metal Gear. And the entire time, Snake was being played in this deeply elaborate plan. And not only was Miller in on it, but—
Snake, that's not Master Miller. Master Miller's body was just discovered at his home. He's been dead for at least 3 days.
We haven't been talking to Master Miller. In fact, apparently, the codec links Master Miller to inside Shadow Moses. So, who have we been talking to this whole time?
Me, dear brother.
Liquid, how the—
You've served your purpose. You may die now.
Liquid was posing as Miller the entire time, orchestrating everything to get us to activate Metal Gear. And this is an extremely well-executed plot twist. Even if you do end up predicting it, the way it's revealed, the build-up, the push and pull, it's all so great. It's all intriguing. And it's made all the more impactful when Liquid starts taunting about it immediately afterwards.
Snake! Did you like my sunglasses?
So Liquid reveals the truth, the real truth. It was the US government that put the Foxdie disease in Snake, all because the US government wants the giant nuclear robots, and Snake was just following orders the whole time.
Following orders blindly with no questions asked, you've lost your warrior's pride and become nothing more than a pawn, Snake.
However, Naomi did alter Foxdie a bit, of course so that it does target Snake. But furthermore, Snake and Liquid are indeed twins, and not only twins, but they're clones of Big Boss. And now we get the ultimate example of this whole genes versus ideology thing. Because here's the thing, Liquid is an inferior clone, and he resents Snake for taking all these superior genes from him.
Can you understand what it's like to know that you're garbage since the day you were born?
And furthermore, Liquid Snake hated Big Boss, but he hated Solid Snake for killing Big Boss.
You stole my chance for revenge! Now I'll finish the work that Father began.
Once I establish my theocracy, I will throw you in my dungeon.
And because of this, Solid Snake has to fight a giant Metal Gear with a rocket launcher. Now, if you couldn't tell by now, this franchise can get a little goofy sometimes. But then, Gray Fox comes in to help us, where he reveals that years ago, he was the one who killed Naomi's parents, and the regret caused him to raise her as a little sister, causing him eternal regret for the rest of his life.
From the outside, we might have seemed like a happy brother and sister, but every time I looked at her, I saw her parents' eyes staring back at me.
Gray Fox then sacrifices himself, and Snake loses the one man he was the closest with.
We're not tools of the government or anyone else. Fighting was the only thing I was good at. But at least I always fought for what I believed in.
This, of course, gives us the motivation to kick Liquid's ass again. After beating him, though, Snake is temporarily knocked out, giving Liquid ample time to take his shirt off and tie him up, which gives Liquid the opportunity to give us 10 minutes of yapping. Buckle in, by the way, we're gonna be here a minute. So firstly, Liquid confronts Snake about the whole I love killing thing, but does it almost in a way that's kind of mocking the player.
So why are you here then? Why do you continue to follow your orders while your superiors betray you? Why did you come here? Well, I'll tell you then. You enjoy all the killing. That's why.
What?
Are you denying it? Haven't you already killed most of my comrades?
That was...
I I watched your face when you did it. It was filled with the joy of battle.
You're wrong.
There's a killer inside you.
However, the thing is, this is indeed what Snake was made for. Liquid and Snake were results of the Les Enfants Terribles project, where, very, very long story short, the US government wanted to really make Big Boss again. So a bunch of experiments later, out came Snake and Liquid. And their surrogate mother, whoever that is, aborted 6 other fetuses because of the experiment. In other words, or more specifically Liquid's words,
we were accomplices in murder before the day we were even born.
A lot of this forms the backbone of Liquid's own ideology. He's chained to his genes, his past, and he knows it. In his eyes, he's just breaking the cycle.
You can't fight your genes. It's fate. All living things are born for the sole purpose of passing on their parents' genes. That's why I'll follow what my genes tell me.
He also has Meryl held hostage. So you know, in case the giant robot wasn't climactic enough. Also, by the way, no pressure, the US government's gonna bomb the whole place. Yeah, Snake calls the colonel and some guy from the Department of Defense comes in.
This is the Secretary of Defense, Jim Houseman.
And long story short, he's all like, LOL, I'm gonna bomb you now because we're America. And now Liquid wants to fight us on top of the Metal Gear. Janky-ass combat that wasn't meant for actual combat at all. We then knock him off Metal Gear and save Meryl. And Snake finally shows his love for Meryl. The two of them are so happy to see each other.
During all the pain and shame, there was one thing I was sure of. A single hope that I held on to. And that hope kept me alive. Snake, I wanted to see you again.
That's what I'm talking about. This shit means something to me, man.
Anyway, so America's gonna blow us the fuck up. So Meryl and Snake find this car and break out. Except along the way, there's one problem.
Not yet, Snake. It's not over yet.
The Liquid Snake is still alive. This guy is on dick. So we have this crazy bombastic shootout scene until finally our car crashes outside.
Look, Snake, daylight. We're gonna crash.
Good news, Snake and Meryl are still alive. The bad news, so is Liquid. But at the nick of time, Liquid dies of... And there lies Liquid Snake, dead on the ground, allowing Snake and Meryl to make it out safely. Not only that, but the Secretary of Defense ended up getting arrested, meaning that giant bombing strike is now completely called off.
Washington isn't stupid enough to use nukes to cover up a few secrets.
Yeah, you sure about that? Although Snake and Campbell do get some nice closure in this scene.
Snake, I'm sorry, I kept a lot of things from you.
It's okay, Colonel. The battery on these nanomachines will run out soon. They won't be able to follow us.
I guess we won't meet again.
Don't worry. I'll pay you a visit sometime.
Really? I look forward to that.
However, Snake still asks about Foxdie, how much time he has left, as Snake is still infected with the virus. The Colonel tells Snake to call Naomi, so Snake does, asking when his time is up. Naomi isn't sure, but she tells him it's up to you.
Everybody dies when their time is up.
Yeah, so when's mine up?
It's up to you how you use the time left to you. Live, Snake. That's all I can say to you.
And we get one of my favorite ending speeches in any game ever, tying a beautiful knot and giving a beautiful thesis statement to this game. Here it is, slightly abridged but with no interruptions.
Each person is born with their fate written into their own genetic code. It's unchangeable, immutable. But that's not all there is to life. I finally realized that. I told you before the reason that I was interested in genes and DNA. Because I wanted to know who I was, where I came from. But I was wrong. I didn't find anything. I didn't learn anything. The most we can say about DNA is that it governs a person's potential strengths, potential destiny. You mustn't allow yourself to be chained to fate, to be ruled by your genes. Humans can choose the type of life they want to live. The important thing is that you choose life. And then live. Until today, I've always looked for a reason to live. But from here on, I'm going to just live. Genes exist to pass down our hopes and dreams for the future through our children. Living is a link to the future. That's how all life works. Loving each other, teaching each other. That's how we can change the world. I finally realized it. The true meaning of life.
Snake and Meryl then find this jet ski and ride off into the sunset. But before they do, Snake's character arc finally comes full circle. He sees the world in a new light. He has a new worldview. And that worldview is, after a whole game of distant nihilism, to finally live for someone else.
Until today, I've lived only for myself. Survival has been the only thing I cared about in my life.
That's not just you. That's how everyone is.
I only felt truly alive when I was staring death in the face. I don't know. Maybe it's written into my genes.
What about now? What do your genes say about your future now?
Maybe it's time I live for someone else.
Someone else?
Yeah. Someone like you. Maybe that's the real way to live.
Snake also reveals his real name to Meryl. His name is David. The two of them still don't quite know their new purpose, but together they'll find it. Their histories, their genes, their past, none of it will dictate that.
What are those?
Caribou. To the Aleutians, the caribou is a symbol of life. It'll be spring here soon.
For us too.
Yeah.
Throughout the entire game, Snake is a brutal, stoic action hero, and these are his last lines in this game.
Come on. Let's enjoy life.
The game then ends, but we also get this very haunting ending message, listing at the time real-world facts about the amount of nukes in the world. Something that in the age of current conflicts going on in the world is still haunting to see to this day. In fact, if Oppenheimer proves anything, the fear is still out there, being expressed in art. It's kind of crazy how a game from 1998 still evokes this feeling. How people are always under constant fear of war and conflict. And that's on top of the game's personal fears too. How a lot of people feel disillusioned by their generational trauma. But yet, there is a hope. A personal hope. A hope that through connections, through fighting for something, through love, we can find freedom from ourselves. It's not our genes that make us, it's us. A funny story, I recently came across this TikToker named Sush Z, who is the real-life granddaughter of Tiny Tim, the eccentric and odd 1960s musician, who at the age of 39 married a 17-year-old girl and abused her. And her having children at a very young age caused multiple generational patterns. And short story, the granddaughter was definitely affected by this. What's funny is that this person is now a furry artist, which is, yeah, kinda goofy and funny, but also that makes me really happy because at the end of the day, they found their own identity. They're finding their own career, living their own life. Obviously, I don't know them personally. I asked them if I could use the story in my video and they said yes.
I kept waiting. I need your story for my video.
Sure, homie, whatever, smell off bitch ass weirdo.
Psychomantis.
But that was kind of it. In spite of that, though, I'm really happy for them. And it's a reminder that even in real life, our genes don't have to damn us. I know it's kind of funny comparing a furry artist to Metal Gear Solid, but Metal Gear is also kind of a funny game itself. It goes on long, detailed diatribes about the military-industrial complex, genetic information and whatnot, while also having giant robots and men in gas masks who talk about Super Mario Sunshine.
Oh, so you've played Super Smash Bros. Melee before.
And ironically, this kind of makes the game more emotionally grounded. Metal Gear is absolutely absurd, but so is life. In a weird way, Metal Gear kind of reflects life in its lack of tone. But the arcs of Snake, Meryl, Naomi, Otacon, and so many other characters, all these characters have deep-seated generational trauma, and yet by the end of the game, they end up putting away all of it, living their own lives. Snake is literally a clone of another man, Big Boss. But it's up to Snake himself to figure out what to do with that. What to do do with the time that's been given to him. And due to the fox die virus, Snake at some point is going to die. But that's not the end of life. Snake still has something to live for. In fact, he has a lot of things to live for. But it's up to Snake to finally figure that out. And maybe one day, he'll realize that he wasn't the superior clone the whole time. Yeah, so you may be asking, what happened to Revolver Ocelot? Why didn't he die of that fox die virus? Well, there's an after credits scene where Ocelot over the phone reveals that Snake was the inferior clone and Liquid was the superior one.
That's right. Until the very end, Liquid thought he was the inferior one.
Not only that, but turns out there is a third Snake brother who is the person that Ocelot is talking to.
No, sir. No one knows that you were the third one. Solidus.
So you may be wondering, where was this guy? Well, don't worry, that's a pretty easy answer. He was just doing this thing called running the United States because he's the president?
Yes. Thank you. Goodbye, Mr. President.
He took control of Squidward's house and began attacking the city! So, Metal Gear Solid 1 ended up being a massive hit, and as such, a sequel that raised the bar even further was in order. Kojima realized this and went, well, shit.
Footprints of these.
It should be you on this boat, Snake, not me! I'm based in Red-Pilled! You're a liberal cuck!
What the fuck is he even saying? It doesn't matter. He's gonna fall into a pool and die after his son has sex with his new wife. It's okay to laugh, Kaz. We're all thinking it.